Get the start of it. Game 2. EDG, Invictus Gaming. EDG, they are falling prey to their own Giant Slayer curse.
Oh,
It would be so IG if Invictus Giant Slayers beat Billy Gaming, the best team of the LPL, then lost to EDG, who we have assumed to be the worst team in the LPL. But game 1, EDG outplayed them in the team fights.
And the I stands for inconsistent. It's inconsistent gaming over here, doing their very best to make everyone's predictions look a bit dubious. But yeah, honestly, if you're looking for a team that's going to cause an upset one way or another, it's probably IG related, let's be real. The sides have changed though. IG over on the blue side is they've gone with the Hui. They've also gotten rid of the Poppy and the Varus this time around. And we also said part of why EDG had a good game was they just made the golden position significantly more simple to execute. 2 of those big picks to make that happen, not on the table. They'll first pick the Karma for all the nerfs to come on through. The combo is still really busted with Malignant, so it's coming straight in.
Senna's been let through.
That's true.
What this means is that we are likely going to see is, well, Senna Nautilus, I was thinking that or the Senna Maokai, both are very strong. Are we going to see the Smolder trade? I said yesterday, I don't think you can let Smolder through in the LPL. Because I think this champion is far too strong in the hands of LPL AD carries. I wouldn't be surprised to see that go across. It's not a champion which you can just scale up alongside. It feels like Smolder wins that right now. It's being hovered. It has been the pick, which it feels like LCS, LCK, and LPL have just said, if you pick Senna, we pick Smolder. And whereas before, Senna would outscale, and then the Senna's support would outscale as well, Smolder throws that to the wind.
Yeah, I think he does. I think it's also worth saying, of course, that while you have infinite scaling on things like the Senna and the Smolder, a lot of Senna's infinite scaling in some ways, it's part attached to utility, right? Whereas for Smolder, it's just raw DPS, and your frontline will not stand against a high stack Smolder. We saw that on display for everyone yesterday. Really solid stuff from BLG and Elk to win out some late game fights after bad early games with the champion. Coming into the second phase of bans though. And is EDG banning out Wink again? That's kind of what they did towards the last bans of last game as well. They're getting rid of the Rakan. I wonder whether we'll see another ban down there on the other side, trying to get rid of some of Fish's more active champions.
They might also get rid of something like an outside ban like a Camille or a Cassante. The Cassante's gone because YSKM is very proficient in Jax matchups. Jax is arguably his best champion. He plays a lot of champions which can deal with that too. So I'm interested to see if we see maybe a Jax Fiora on top side. We'll see whether we get that too. I think that when you lock in this Jax, it is a gauntlet thrown. Both of these top laners, they rank up there amongst the best in the LPL.
I will also say that it's strictly a world where he gets flexed into jungle because, of course, you've got the Xin Zhao there.
That's true. Yeah.
And Monkey is the kind of player who would put some time into Jax. It's his kind of champion. Carry AD jungler? Yes, please. So we'll keep our eyes on that. The Orianna worked well last game. Will be locked in again. You've already got a couple ball carriers. Shockwave with the Dawning Shadow over the top of it is a lot of AoE damage and shielding to work with for your team. So the team fight identity still kind of similar here from the side of EDG. A little less pick, a little bit more wombo combo.
Okay, so you're absolutely right that now you have the last pick of that Jax being flexed between the two of them. I just want to see Alice Jax, man. This guy is so good at it. It'll be a very important matchup to see up there on the top side as well. So now YSKM has to sit here and think, they could flex this away from top lane. So if I pick a good matchup into the Jax, you could see an Aatrox locked in on the other side. Maybe you have to just say, look, I'm going to lock in Aatrox or something like that and just try and have a good matchup in a blind sense too. Could potentially go towards a Gnar. This would be very different. You're looking for something that can just deal with the Jax or a blind or a counter pick coming in. It's the cannon. Very hard to counter pick that on top side, and Jax suffers against it.
Does. Now they're debating going towards Viego. The Graves was left open. Both 2 items, scaling junglers with a lot of potential team fight upsides. Wait and see what they decide to lock in as things like the Lee Sin still available as well. Rammus would be hilarious, but instead they will go towards the Lee Sin. Monkey, much like pretty much every LDL jungler you care to name, very proficient on the champion. Most LPL junglers put in a lot of time. It's pretty much a requirement to get picked up at this kind of level if you're in the LPL system. So he will lock that in now.
LPL Lee Sin, baby. So we are going to see the cannon into the Jax. This is a hard losing matchup for Jax. Now, you can go towards something like Sundered Sky and Kennick Rooker in second, and it can help you with it. I'm interested to see whether Alice flexes a build towards that. Typically, LPL Jax has gone Triforce into Sundered Sky, but I don't think you can do that realistically versus a cannon. I think he shuts you down too hard.
What about sort of slightly more offensive MR options on Wit's End or a Moor or something? Is that even something that Jax could consider?
I don't think Wit's End is... Well, it gives you tenacity nowadays, which is pretty okay, but I think you just need a lot of those raw HP stacks, because the problem is that Kennen can just kind of sit and trade with you quite slowly over time, take incrementally good trades, and then things kind of fall apart a little bit after. Jax struggles to have the same kind of grasp trades that he has in some other lanes, because if you jump on the Kennen, he immediately presses it, he stuns you with a W as well, and then you kind of take a harder trade after that point. So I'd like to see him potentially go towards something like a... I mean, we saw Irrelevant do this into some AP matchups before, where you go for the Sun to Sky or the Titanic into the Kaonic, and you try and make yourself a very tanky frontliner, as opposed to the DPS beast, which LPL has typically played around this champion.
Yeah, and I could see actually that Titanic being a good option, because actually, if I just clear the wave fast, Kennen doesn't have as much option to trade with me.
However, there is this little bit of a problem with this EDG draft. EDG have won when Ala can frontline. Jax is not always the easiest frontline to play, and I'm also not sure it blocks out Smolder Q'd as that counter-strike, because I think that does technically count as a spell which applies on-hit effects. Need to see how that works. I actually haven't seen the Smolder versus Jax matchup quite so far, as we see a 5-man stack from EDG right the way into this game. When you're against ranged top laners, you like to stop in the top stack in the top lane bushes, put down a ward, and make sure that YSCam cannot just get into that brush and then start auto-attacking you from that front bush in the lane.
Quick look into the audience there. We've got a Battle Bunny Misfortune in attendance, apparently. Always cool to see people putting that kind of effort into the creativity. We begin to...
There's a very cool Gwen cosplayer that turns up very regularly to
seriously?
the LEC. Yeah, they've got some good stuff.
Yeah, actually, I know exactly who
One of the better things about the League of Legends scene is the amount of creatives we have. You know, if you go tune into the LPL stream, the LJL stream's great for this too, and a number of other regions. There are great fan artists, great cosplayers, great creatives of all different levels, which tend to come together around this game, which I'd say this game we love, but sometimes it's the game we put up with. But today, it's definitely one which EDG would like to put to bed.
Let's starting with the counter-strike. Gets a good trade there onto YSKM, who does not enjoy those early trades at all. Can try and throw back, but the stacks disappear. End up being a 1 trade for Ale, at least as the lane begins.
Ale doing a really good job to just use that passive at level 1, gets that stun very early, and with the bone plating now gone from Ken, maybe you can look for a level 2 or level 3 trade with that grass prop coming up, so that's very important.
What's the cooldown on it?
On Counter-Strike, it's actually quite long.
I'm thinking bone plating.
Bone plating, it's 30-40 seconds in first rank, it's actually quite a long time.
That's good to know. So it's always one of those ones where I don't actually know the timing on that particular rune.
So the reason I know that is because you used to take bone plating on Ahri into Vex. Vex and LeBlanc, because against those matchups things get kind of awkward. And as you can see, it was blown just as he was coming into lane. He doesn't have it up right now for this one, which means that he doesn't get the extra damage reduction. Very important early trades. Aragon, he's obviously on the LEC as an analyst. He talks an awful lot about top lane runes and choice and stuff like that. Bone plating, very important for how you use your early levels.
Trading in the bot side, Senna and Nautilus. If you can get access to a wave as a Senna, you're so much more obnoxious in lane than if you don't, because you get more Qs, you get more damage, and Senna actually gets shove, and a decent early pressure is...
been spotted, but Monkey misses the Q. Don't think realistically they could have looked for a big fight anyway, because Karma could just roam over. Very easy to get into your own jungle now from mid lane into the blue side jungle. Leon, lands that mark. Monkey Q's backwards!
Oh, Monkey, 2 Qs missed. We'll throw down a crippling, try to buy some space. Can maybe W out here with a safeguard flashes over the wall. But it's just a flashback on in. And a disastrous invade from Monkey on the Lee Sin.
I want to see LDL Lee Sin and the Monkey paw closes and curls. That is... unforgivable, actually. The 2 Qs miss and then not being able to hop out to safety because you don't even have a ward, you put it down there, is almost unforgivable, actually. So what happens here? He misses the first one. I think that's at range. I think you can understand that one, though. This one, I think he's just clicking backwards and his Q gets messed up with his mouse movement. It's a sad thing to see. I think last game was a very easy composition for him to play in. He was playing that Viego. He was the beneficiary of his team setting him up for success through the early clear as well. You don't have that same degree of hand-holding this time, and now he will have to play from behind. Bad start from EDG.
Not a great moment there. It felt like potentially a really cool invade with Allah having the early shove, but can't make it happen. We'll land the Q this time. But really all the Leon was in mid lane for was a little bit of help with Cry and Shove, and then heading towards the second Scuttle Crab, which you'd love to claim.
Yeah, so not going to get himself double scuttled, at least. Leon going to secure that bot side, as Monkey took that top one all the same. Top side, you can see that YSCam has claimed a bit of a CS advantage, as Ala surviving. Yet to see what he's going to build as his first item. And it's a question of whether we're going to see maybe something like the Sundered Sky for those very short trades with the healing involved with it too. Counter-Strike used pretty long cooldown, of course, at early levels too. You know, in some matchups, so there was a really fun thing with Jax versus Fiora where because I think it's like Jax's counter, or there's like a slight discrepancy between the cooldown of Riposte and Counter-Strike. What you would do is, I think it was Fiora would start maxing Riposte second to get it a lower cooldown than Counter-Strike. But then Jax has started maxing Counter-Strike first to then get it below the riposte in the same way. So both of them just like, oh, yep, I definitely do this up as much as possible. And those minute kind of timings, particularly in top lane, you have to know those cooldowns down to the second.
Absolutely you do. Monkey's going to go over the wall and finally land there. Finds a very difficult...
No!
Monkey! I
don't have words. I don't have words. Monkey has come in and has largely played fairly stably, fairly okay, crying flashing away in the mid lane, but this game is a story of Monkey messing up mechanically on Lee Sin, a champion which is kind of seen to be this is your badge of honor as a jungler. Can you play the Lee Sin well? Monkey in this early game, he has had a nightmare of it.
Fails the Q in the first invade, jumps over the wall, and realizes there's two members there and fails the ward hop back over. I know it was tight timing, but that's just so disappointing. Let's watch it again. And
I know that Lee Sin himself doesn't need the power of eyesight. Potentially Monkey should take off those blinders himself, though, because he's had an absolute shocker with how he's played out his skill shots and played out his positioning. He was already behind in this game. Gets a grub, denies one of the first three, but this is still just such a bad situation for what is meant to be an early snowballing jungler like the Lee Sin.
On the other side, of course, is Shinzao, who is notorious for snowballing himself out of those early games. Not quite the monster that Titanic Shinzao was right at the beginning of the season, but it's still very much a high priority, high presence. Certainly able to snowball. Dragon being started by the side of IG, and I don't think EDG realistically have that many ways to contest. The last Embrace comes on through into the hook. This is still currently a 2v3, but overcome Fisher and Monkey to make it the 4v4. How much more can they realistically find, though? And the answer's really not much at all.
And we go back to a fairly quiet state of affairs. Lian now is going to be invaded into his jungle, as Fisher has got himself into the enemy jungle alongside his own jungler in Monkey, who needs a little bit more hand-holding in this early game now. Krine's coming back into lane, not quite with the lost chapter, but he does have himself those cooldown boots at least. And on the top side, Ala, we still don't get to know his first item yet. He's gone for those Merc Treads first. It means that you can maybe stick around for an extra auto attack and importantly walk away for some place too. Wink misses the minion taxi.
That's a bit unfortunate, and Wink will therefore take a pretty nasty trade afterwards. The Snake managed to land a solid last embrace, and with a level 6 to his name, could still summon Mum, so the got to be a bit careful there, because the healing on that, if nothing else, makes it quite hard to read Smolder's HP bar.
And we haven't even talked about these bot lanes that much. You can't really dive that easily, but you're out of mana on, and Wink doesn't have ult. I take it back, you can definitely dive this now.
There we go, they will claim the kill onto the cow. And a good spot back for EDG after a pretty rough early game. And Monkey even gets involved, which perhaps is something he really needed to have happen. It's been not the greatest first 5 from him.
It's been a torrid time for them, but still, getting a kill onto a Smolder lane, that's important, because Smolder will outscale Senna in terms of DPS. You are hoping that the Nautilus can become a hyper tank in their own way, but even then, it feels like Smolder can burn down tanks in a way that a lot of AD carries can't do right now. So shutting him down early, making sure that he doesn't get to early cooldown reduction, means that he can't get to early stacks. That means that it slows down the time when he takes over the game. Leon, Krine, now they're walking in. It's currently a 3v3 as Wink comes up.
Yeah, Snake is here as well, as Leon in a difficult position. Will Crescent Guard now, but they're still going to get pulled back. Look at Ali over the backside, trying to get into the to do some damage. Monkey flashing away. Will likely go down, does so, but at what cost?
Here comes YSKM.
They lose both junglers. YSKM coming in flash for the slicing Maelstrom. Ali just can't get far enough away. Fisher, no mana. Vampire finally here, though. Could make this very ugly indeed as the Clockwork wind-up winds down the cannon. The Lightning Rat put down Pikachu. We ain't choosing you today.
EDG, turns out they win fights in the jungle when it's not about their jungler. They call everyone else to come to play, and IG overextend for what was about a red buff steal. That's what this all started over. God damn, I've missed LPL shenanigans where it feels like everything starts over. Just the most meaningless of things. On gets himself a plate on bot side. He's going to get himself a wave shoved into turret. He might have to pop a ghost to get away from this, though, as Monkey is starting to close down on this bot lane.
W6D2 doesn't have the flash, but can still do some damage. Can look to Q forwards now that they flap taps down. Will kick away, puts him in range potentially of Ale, who now gets a flash and a ghost out of Arn.
Ooh.
Good sidestep there from Arn, a necessary one. But that actually is a fairly significant win there for EDG.
Monk tried to do the smite flash, the smite Q to try and get the Q through the minion, and very nearly landed it. Would have potentially landed to a kill. Monkey, at least he's not been cowed. That's kind of important because and I didn't even realize, I didn't even mean that to be announced upon, but still. Wait, Vampire starts from bot lane in this replay and just hooks his way upriver, spider-naughting his way into the fight. Oh my god, this fight lasts so long. Vampire gets to walk across the entirety of the map as one of the lowest base move speed champions in the game. He roams from bot lane up to top jungle to get himself involved to the last kill of this fight. I actually cannot believe that this fight... I cannot believe that this lasted so long. It's like the Jaws theme.
Yeah.
It's the Jaws theme. This dude's just walked across the entire map and eventually ended up getting involved in 2 kills.
We're gonna need a bigger boat to deal with this Nautilus. He's gonna bend from how far down he had to come up.
That is so funny. That's one of the more funny things that I've seen in the last few weeks of League of Legends at the very least. Now you've actually got the Snake as well on a 2-0 and 3 Senna. I think that one thing which has changed about Senna this season in terms of the way that people are playing it is that it feels like Senna is not locked in lane. She's actually roaming across the map an awful lot. Leon has Crescent Guard, doesn't blow it, and is potentially going to die.
Yep, we'll get down to Crescent Guard to no avail. Monkey gets his first kill of the game. Blind Monk. Need to add the eye on the end of that one as IG perhaps lose theirs. I think it's just gaming right now. Certainly not very victorious. Currently as Arn, no flash, no cleanse, does have an ult, and maybe a dream of getting out of this.
He's going to have to try and clear these minions. Teleports. They've got a double teleports coming in. Can they force a fight now? This would be a really big investment for them to try and, you know, bring something around on this bot side, but with the last embrace landing, it's going to fizzle out. YSKM, he's trying to force it all the same. He lands a stun.
I think Vampire might be left out to dry here and will be. Gets a decent hook away, but EDG can't quite execute the shove away. But all the while, though, Fish is topside. They summon both teleports for this. How much does it cost them?
Well, it's going to cost them maybe 2 plates on topside. No one's going to be able to roam up there particularly quickly. Monkey can start hovering around the enemy jungle as well, as he's currently doing. I don't think he can really threaten anyone roaming up there, but it forces IG to really be respectful about the way that they approach this tower. You can see that YSKM was dipping into a couple of bushes to just see that there weren't any pink wards left around, or, of course, an any champion as well. So that's going to be Fisher getting some value from that top side. Monkey goes back, buys an Eclipse. He's coming out onto the map. Not in time for this Dragon, though, as IG are finally going to get themselves potentially one of these objectives on the map and start Dragon stacking.
Leap strikes with the counter strike active to see whether something can be found. Won't do so. Vampire respawn gets knocked up by Wink, but now we'll pull him back. There's going to throw down the Unbreakable Will, but to what avail? Hooked up and going to be left out to dry. The Smolder comes on down, but Mom can't save the friend of the bot lane, and it's stakes for dinner for EDG.
It's looking like it's a little bit doomed here for IG in this early game. They're now down 1,000 gold. They get themselves the 2 dragons, but it feels like when you've picked a matchup to counter this Jax in the Cannon, you expect that to be going a lot better. Ala has 3 kills. He is going towards the Triforce. He's not going towards the Sunder Sky as the first item, but he's afforded that by the fact that he's not really had to worry about the laning phase versus YSKM. He is down in farm, but the kills have more than enough made up for it.
I suppose what it means is if he's going for that Triforce first, you can maybe look for defensive items a little bit further down the line. Monkey, despite the bad start, hasn't been deterred. It's got the Eclipse first. It's going to be scary onto a lot of these squishy members if he gets into the backside. Senna as well, Bloodsong complete. They've got a Rectrix alongside those Swifties, so actually the speed of the Senna around the map, especially with the Curse of the Black Mist, is super fast. You're in a pretty potentially precarious position here as IG.
I love that you know the item of that component thing, which I've completely forgotten. The Rectrix. Can you remember the Armor AD one, which builds into GA? The Nox. It's the Noxian Sigil.
Yes.
Is that it? See, I remember it now. Good. Glad of this. I didn't have anything more to say on that, actually. We should probably talk about the game. Vampire's going to go clear out this wave in mid lane. Of course, this is a farming Nautilus, and it's a fasting Senna. It's not going to be the dieting Senna, which is intermittently fasting and sharing farm. Instead, it's going to be full gold over to Vampire.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially considering Vampire is going to be tasked with being frontline this game. And we said, look, EDG looks so much better when Alec can frontline. And he can sort of do that on Jax. It's intermittently something you can do. But a Nautilus with gold will be a much better option for that.
On really waiting to see when he can come online as well. He's gone for the swiftness boots instead of the cooldown boots we often see on the Smolder, just to buy himself a bit more space from some of these engaged tools which EDG have. He has himself Essence Reaver and that will help, but he really needs a second item. YSKM needs to get off of vision, importantly for him. He has Flash, potentially could be a game-changing play if he can get a big ultimate around the Herald. Monkey flashes away.
No ability to safeguard over the wall. Into the backline! Wink! With the monster pulverize, though. That will still be the Herald going over the way of IG. The fight afterwards means that Ale is dead. Vampire nowhere to go. Falls down here as Leon gets another one. And IG, hats off to the cow. Alistair combo from the heavens.
And it's so quick too. When can you miss it, you might say? He hits a crucial combo around the Herald and EDG. They walk into one of the worst case scenarios for them. The geography works against them. The walls are not giving them easy access out. They have 3 flashes out of that fight. And it's a very difficult situation for them. Look how this starts. YSKM is on vision. Vampire, you can see that he's looking for a big fight to just try and start something before IG pull their own big triggers. But without YSKM able to find himself back into river, that's a threat. They have to back off from him. They can't walk upwards in the river. Because they can't walk upwards in the river, they walk into the Alistair. Alistair gets a huge combo. And at this point in the game, Alistair combo actually does a significant amount of damage too. Despite the fact that YSKM doesn't get an ultimate onto everyone, he doesn't blow the flash either, so the next time the team fight comes around, that'll be a problem. EDG, they walk away with a very difficult scenario as the Herald is even claimed by IG.
And actually, a lot of the early objectives have gone the way of IG. They've got 5 grubs, 2 dragons, Herald. That is great news if you're an IG fan, and that is a much better thing because YSKM just loses out the 1v1. Ale will trade himself out, but they summon a teleport for this as well.
Oh my gosh, the close 1v1. This is what we wanted between these two top laners. Arla on his Jax, YSKM trying to get himself a good matchup with a lane-dominant champion. They get that 1-for-1. Cryan is going to be getting this turret, but is he going to get teleported on?
He is.
Monkey's coming up as well. He has a flash, but he's going to have to get himself out with some slick feet.
Cryan, he splays one out well, can try to flash in range, gets kicked, will root come through, but the shockwave afterwards means Cryan dies as the eclipse damage on a Q2, that resonating strike gets him down.
While this is happening, Herald is summoned in mid lane with Fisher having no teleport and Monkey not being there. It means that it will be a free hit towards that tower. IG have 5 grubs. We didn't exactly check in on that one. Sometimes again, these games, this happened last game too, they've been a bit all over the place. Kind of hard to tell when you can kind of talk about what's happened with their full grub platter being put through. But still, IG get some damage on that mid lane outer turret. If they were to take that, I think that'd be a big reprieve for them.
Exactly that. And there's a turret apiece, but as I said earlier, those neutral objectives are very much in IG's favour. 20 seconds to what would be sole point. I don't know whether EDG are going to be even considering contesting. As you can see, Fisher with no teleport is on that top lane tier 1. So they're just saying, look, we'll give this one up. We want the golden inventory. We want to wait for another item. Monkey and Ale potentially in a spot of bother here, but they're pulling far enough back to not be collapsed on by IG, and they will head over towards this dragon themselves.
With the last minute of play, we've had a couple of teleports blown, and of course the flash from YSKM. This does change the way that teleport fights can start to unwrap and unfold, rather. Because YSKM doesn't have that flash, even though he saved at that Herald, it means that EDG can be a little bit more safe. Arn gets hit by a hook, but Vampire might have gone too deep here. He might have to flash out.
The last embrace afterwards. Vampire will force the flash. Smolder summons Mum once more. Vampire still getting some more damage back, and they manage to get a Q back onto Cryan to not too much more. And Vampire, it's a good hook. Initially, you sort of think, and then you realize, yeah, he's gone too deep.
If that was an immediate shockwave follow-up, maybe we'd be having a different conversation, but not to be the case. Arn, how many stacks is he on? We haven't seen that for a little while.
Nearly 80 for the snake.
Yeah, that's a very good point too, actually, thinking about it. As, on the other side, of course, he's playing with a tanked up support. Another hook lands. That was blind into the bush.
Arn immediately flash ghost away. Monkey now in a dangerous position.
YSKM, he's off vision.
YSKM will be able to flash on in here potentially. They need to be afraid. Actually, there's no flash. I take that back. Monkey goes over the wall. Vampire now in a dangerous position. He's left out to dry. Will get down a staggering blow to little avail. They're trying to turn onto YSKM, the flanker. Now the prey. YSKM hit with that dawning shadow, and it will be the 1-for-1. Nautilus for top lane.
Cryan continuing, he has the Malignance. Every time he damages, that mantra comes up. It's another one. 2 mantras back to back.
Fisher,
Is EDG pulled
down.
apart at the seams?
Monkey tries to go in to buy some time. Flash back over the wall. The snake now in a dangerous position. Wink looking for more. Monkey nowhere to go. Lands a Q. But Smolder just breathes more fire. And the Lee Sin dies 3 for 1. And the invade goes wrong.
This Smolder hasn't even hit late game yet, but now they're 2-0 and 3, and they've been accelerated towards that. IG, they have themselves 3 dragons, they have themselves 5 grub buffs, and they have themselves a Karma backing up a now very fed Smolder. EDG, they had managed to claw their way back from some awful early plays from Monkey, but it feels like, much like last game, these two teams are always spoiling for a fight, but they're kind of overreaching where they're the ones in the enemy jungle as well. Feels like last game and then coming into this one as well. IG, when they were in the enemy jungle, they were kind of overreaching this time, particularly because there are so many wards which have been dropped behind them. YSCam has ample options, but he doesn't have that flash. He used that to even up that 1-for-1 trade in topside. It means that he doesn't have it to flash over a wall and get multi-person ultimate. Now, he does buy a lot of attention. It splits the fight, but this isn't really the fight which YSCam was aiming for. Sadly for him, can't get full value, and EDG, they avoid somehow the worst case scenario, but it's still not great after that.
Problem is they can't extricate themselves having killed YSKM. They kind of get a little bit uncertain about which way to walk, and then no real way out. Monkey knows he's not going to be able to walk to safety, so kind of just gets traded out here as Arn sneezes on the Lee Sin and he falls down. You might not be able to see, but you can't deal with cold still.
Yeah, just because you can't see the pathogens doesn't mean they're not there.
Yeah. Object permanence.
You know, the thing is, object permanence does actually affect things at a quantum level. Because if you don't actually see something, then obviously it doesn't collapse into a waveform.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So object permanence, it matters on some degree, just not to this one. Important items hit up by the carries of Cryan and Arn. You have Crypt Bloom from Cryan, and you have the Shojin from the Smolder, which means that way more Qs, way more Ws, way more ability to stack and deal damage. Level 11 particularly as well. If you stack up the Shojin's passive, which increases your ultimate damage as well, 1 Q on the wave will start to stack that up, and as soon as that ultimate comes through, significantly more damage. You have to shut down this Smolder somehow, someway.
I feel like there's a potential champion design thing there where you've got like an artillery type mage who does more damage if they're off vision. Like you can have like abilities change depending on if you're on vision or not.
Well, so Fiddlesticks has his abilities fear when he's out of vision.
Kha'Zix to an extent as well with the isolation. Or maybe like a more deliberate thing, like actually on vision.
What I'd quite like then is, I mean, what would be kind of cool is if you had, I mean, if you've got the Cassante kind of archetype where you change forms with your ultimate for a set period of time, as opposed to a form changer. So you could have like your base form, which helps when you're off a vision, but then you press your ultimate, and actually it then ends up like it reveals yourself. But when you're close enough to an enemy champion, then actually maybe that could give yourself some extra stuff too.
Turn wards into turrets or something could be quite.
I'm not sure about that one.
You know, like have like a.
The ward is biting me, Mom.
You can make your wards invulnerable for like 10 seconds.
God, that'd be. Imagine if Kindred ult saved wards.
That'd be.
And not. Imagine if you Kindred ulted for a control ward. That would be so
base. That would
base.
be peak pro play.
That would be so like Sightstone meta, Korean dominance meta of like 2016-17 kind of stuff.
Pyoshig's eyes glow red.
Look, there is more important stuff to talk about. We do have 30 seconds on the dragon. Big items hits up. 3 and 2.5 items for Arn, and Flash available for YSCam, who does have teleport coming up if there can be a ward placed somewhere around the map, but currently he is not with the team right now. He's off of vision. What can he do? He's still off of vision. YSKM hasn't had the game-changing ult just yet. This could be the moment.
Needs to try and find something. The execute threshold's in. You just saw Snake have that line turn up. Smolder has hit that critical breakpoint, but now Ale is shoved up very deep. About to find himself in a 1v2. Throws down the counter-strike, can leap strike to the minion wave, and does so. Everybody from IG is coming, though. Dash on forward with the flash audacious charge, and Ale dead to right. We'll get a counter-strike on two, but nothing else. And Ale just overshoves.
And EDG can't pin the rest of the team while this is happening. Now YSKM is teleporting for a flank. He has the flash.
And Fisher flashes. The hook goes wide. Vampire, he apparently can't deal with electricity either. Double kill over to Arn Smolder, and this is game over, you've got to feel.
Finally, the flash ultimate from Kennen comes through, and with Soul being put down to the sword, with long death timers allowing IG to move as a 5-man unit to Baron, EDG will be brought to a game 3 after game 1 and how they punished IG with Ala on a front line being impossible to kill. You could have a bit of hope, but EDG, they have been quite bereft of that this year. If they were to lose this series, it would be the end of playoff hopes for them. Teleport coming in to contest the Baron as EDG, trying not to give this up at the last gasp.
Monkey has flash. He's got a way into the pit. They've got a Dawning Shadow. They can play this.
And he's got the Q on the Baron. Are they going to flip it? Can you afford to do this? Monkey, he has the steal potential.
Backs away, the Ignite's on top of it, down to 3,000 HP, and IG just can't finish it. It's too risky.
It is. As soon as you get that Lee Sin Q on the Baron, you have to question whether it's worth it. Is this worth what you're doing? So IG, bit of a overstay on that Baron. Either way, they get Arla's flash out, and you can see that with the execute bars showing up. Arn has over that 2-2-5 stacks. This is the point of the game where you start to have that. Hex Flash over. Wink has his ult. Not level 2 just yet, but IG, they try and look for the home run. Instead, they find themselves just stacking the bases.
Kasante's not in here. You don't have 3 Turfo strikes to go for that home run.
No, there are a number of other striking abilities. None of them are in this game, but there are other ones too.
No, you're right. I'm just trying to think. Is there a strike name in this one? No, there's not.
I thought there are a couple which sound really similar to you. There's like crushing blows and thundering blows and a lot of stuff like that. Either way, this is a pretty crushing blow for Arla in the bot side, because he doesn't get to kind of team up with this team. I think that if his team pins the rest of the team or looks for engage as they get engaged down to him, he can maybe flash. Well, he doesn't have the. Well, he does have flash here. He can flash forward and look to kind of combo up with his team. I think this is just a bit of a disconnection issue. Cryin gets a great slow onto Fisher. He doesn't have flash anymore. Oh. Everyone gets blasted by the inclement weather.
Yeah, and you can see Vampire looking for the hook, but YSKM is well aware, flashes to the side of it, make sure that doesn't land. There's not really much more you can do as Vampire aside from try and Mad Life it, but then YSKM just doesn't flash. He waits until he sees where the hook is going.
3 items now onto Arn. Rapid fire cannon built up because there's no hyper tank in this lobby really. I mean, Nautilus kind of counts. It can definitely help in terms of getting that Q uptime. Look how much damage Arla takes. Doesn't even need the Lord Dominates regards. EDG, it feels like they've been outscaled in damage now. You need to really somehow, for the first time in this game, reach Arn and stop him doing damage.
See both AP solo laners in YSKM and Cryin have both gone towards the Crit Bloom second to try and mitigate any MR stacking, get ahead of that curve, get the ability haste in, the healing in as well. Feels pretty good.
You can see that right now, Wink doing his best job of using his ultimate and his full HP about to say, look, I'm a melee support, I can face check. You can't do this as a Nami, you can't do this as a Milio, but he's trying really hard to just make sure that IG have all the information to make one of those game-ending plays. Not many flashes are able to force fights right now, but they do have that Cloud Soul to move quickly around the map and to capitalize on opportunities open up by EDG. EDG on the other side, they're trying to use this Jax to at least get some side lane pressure to make sure that IG don't have all go buttons green for a Baron start.
Exactly that. YSKM is on this bot side, picking up another wave. Continue this shove. There's Kennen at 2.5 items. You've got the Karma at 2.5 items. Critically, though, you've got Smolder at 3 and at 274 odd stacks. If EDG cannot find some way to kill the Smolder, the fight feels so difficult.
And part of the reason for that is the fact that you don't, well, I mean, you have a frontliner in Vampire, and you can see that by his scoreboard is 0, 4, and 5. He has still been taken down, and given the point that we now have this on Smolder starting to pop off, that's not particularly tanky. Arla is getting tankier. It looks like he's potentially going towards a Jack show. His third item as a hook lands onto Cryin. He's just popped.
Huge moment. They needed something. Now on the other side, flash into the kick. Won't quite be able to get beyond him as the K flash is just a little bit late. Now the turnaround can begin to come on through his Monkey. Will still be able to safeguard out. It's not the greatest mom call ever. Maybe he didn't get the right address to come on forward with her SUV. On the other side, though, Leon tries to flash away himself. The Achu comes on through. And EDG win out, but probably not enough to turn for something like Baron.
In about 30 seconds, back-to-back, both carries of IG caught out. Cryin dies, Arn blows both his summoners. So EDG, despite the fact that it felt like this composition has kind of elapsed its timer, particularly against the Smolder, they managed to find something. Arn with no summoners, can you find that crucial play? Now they are down.
Keep your eyes, of course, for the Snake with the fact he's a fast exceller. Loads of stacks, of course, but level 11. If he gets caught, this center is so squishy.
So teleports back onto the map. It has been a push and pull of this mid lane. Actually, in both games of this, it has been a push around mid lane. IG win it out, teleport out. So YSKM flash up in a few seconds. They don't see it. He is on to a kill angle.
Finally spotted, turns around, flash, Procket Bell. Fisher needs to go back away the other side. Vampire taken low, trying to get out to safety and towards the safety of his coffin and away from the daylight that IG represent. 4,000 HP on the Baron.
So that's going to be a whiff on the Shockwave as well. They don't have that. Monkey potentially looking for the steal.
Wink headbutts him away. Phenomenal play on the cow, who flashes back on out. Mum is back up and available. Another pickup for the kids, and IG get out to safety with the Baron in hand.
So IG, it has been a bit trying for them. It feels like they've been positioning a little poorly, not getting the most out of the power spikes which they have right now, but they eventually crack open this mid lane out of turrets. And this is how it starts, of course, where it feels like honestly, IG, they are being very disrespectful of the Nautilus hooks. There's no reason for Cryon to be positioned like that. There's no reason for Arn to be sat on the side like this either. Very disrespectful play from IG's carries. They are lucky to get away with this. The only reason they do get away with this is the fact that their composition is very forgiving. They have a great front line with the Alistar and the Xin Zhao ultimates being able to be that temporary front line, and the fact that Arn's damage is the work of 2 carries at this point. He's absolutely eclipsed every other DPS member in this game.
So hard to deal with. Senna, I think nearly at 3 items, and maybe that's enough. We've not seen her stacks in a while. Of course, remember, she just infinite scales does get massive crit value in particular out of those stacks alongside the increased range, and maybe if you can play for that range advantage, you have an option.
Okay, down towards an Elder spawning. Now you've got a bit of an Elder Dragon, a mini one on the Rift in on itself. EDG, they have a couple of flashes. Arla's probably the most important on how much can you do in terms of the DPS.
Leon goes forwards, we'll regret it that, down to about 2/3 of its HP. Wink taken low, but not out. Throws down the Unbreakable Will. On, no flash, no ghost. Will now summon Mum to not much avail. They get the knock up on Ale, who's so low. Monkey doing something. He's in the backside of this, looking to get in. Will force Cry into flash. The slicing Maelstrom afterwards doesn't get that much value. He can try and keep forward. Will nearly get YSKM, does so. Now he needs to try and escape. The old dragon stolen by Leon, though. He gets a hold of it. Does go down, but what about afterwards? Is Crying. And Arn still with so much HP. The double execute threshold is just too much to deal with. It looked okay for EDG for just a brief moment. A sneeze and another dead member.
And we will go to game 3. Neither of these teams have really been the cleanest in the way they've executed, but they have just about brought us the distance. Invictus Giant Slayers determined not to go down to the 2-8 EDG, the worst roster that EDG has ever fielded in terms of results, their worst start ever, but still they are fighting, and IG not done yet.
Oh my days, it's not quite over yet. They're actually recalling, trying to play this one out a little bit slower. Don't want to overshove with the respawns coming on through, and that might have proven too much. Game still stands, but it looks like critical damage.
So, big thing here is Wink and Lien use their ults very, very early without the Elder being low enough to secure while the front line is still very strong, and without doing a huge amount of damage to the enemy team. Arla doesn't get good value. We talked about how Arla having the flash, very important. He loses all of his HP for basically nothing. This is not a tanky Jax, and on the other side, you can see that actually the front line of YSKM does a little, well, the front line of YSKM's ultimate, because you don't want to walk into that, does some work, and things get really scrappy after this point. Because both front lines really get put out of the fight very early, it allows some of these backliners to just open up without the threat being closed down.
Yeah.
And particularly Arn, as we've kept saying, just has eclipsed everyone else in terms of damage at this point in the game.
And Monkey plays out kind of a clever bit of footwork to break the tether, try and get out to the side, but it takes him out of the pit. It takes him away from the ability to smite.
So we're into the base now. And now we have to see Wink. He has ultimate. He's trying to be that front line, breaking down the turrets and threatening a fight with the Elder.
Exactly that. They are going to be just shoving on forward, so imperious at this point of the game. EDG just can't afford to take a fight, but that means that nearly every inhibitor is just free for the taking, especially with all the grub buffs to their name.
Wink is trying to just be that Unbreakable Will frontline teleport behind. How much could this do? Arla, no flash, and the fight started before he's here.
Monkey's dead. I get what they were looking for. I really do. Arn has to die. You have to take the risk, but you've lost your member. As now every inhibitor's down. Ale on a flanking option, but it's a 4v5 with no structures really to their names.
What can you have? Vampire half HP, you have Defender's advantage, you've used the Nautilus ult on an Alistar to stop him engaging. That feels so low value. The minions are going to get cleared out eventually, but there's another wave just behind them with only 4 members here and one outside of the base. It's going to be the game.
Surely it is. They're back to the fountain. No way to play this one out in the 4v5. Ale finally here, finally gets Crying, but the Nexus is exposed. It's literally the only structure remaining. The Elder Dragon has fallen off, but Smolder's still on the Rift, and he refuses to let this game go out the way of game 1. IG bring it to a 1-1.
It will be a 3-game series in a matchup. We said, hey, IG, they've done well against a lot of our best teams, but they've kind of struggled against some of the lower tier opposition. It feels like they are very good at kind of showing up to games where the stakes are very high. For EDG, though, I think that a lot of people have started underestimating them. They are a team which are still struggling an awful lot, but they've stepped up a lot. We aren't seeing quite as many individual mistakes. We are seeing the fact that they can actually team fight when they have certain things going towards them. Game 2, we saw some of those individual mistakes crop up again, though, and this is the problem. You can't afford any of these mistakes now. You give up any of them, and arguably the most historic org in LPL history. It's up there with, with RNG and EDG, back there from those kind of eras of it. Team W as well, stretching back. They could be missing playoffs for one of the only times in this org's history. I think they've only missed it one other time in the entirety of their career, and that was a massive shock. I think they missed it one time many years ago now. I said over 4 years ago, I think.
It's been a little while, and of course you then look at it and you go, you have to call out things like Monkey messing up those early invades, and yes, did a fairly okay job trying to come back into it, but you've given the advantage over already. You look at Ale on the Jax, over-shoving in the bot lane, giving stuff over, going for the greedy build without an ability to frontline, and dying pretty consistently in those team fights without much value. Some questions to be raised here, and I think EDG will be going back to the drawing board for Game 3.
That'll do us for Game 2, and yeah, we'll chill out for a bit.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, so both series today are going to be in Shanghai, so there's no overlap, so we don't have to worry about catching up to games and stuff like that. Second series is RNG TT. That's kind of important, because if RNG lose a series later today as well, I think actually RNG... Yeah, if RNG lose a series later today as well, they're really struggling to... Let me just check the series score for them, actually thinking about it. Because, yeah, we could have a situation where RNG, who are currently on 2-7... If RNG lose their series later against TT, who are on 2-7 as well, actually the loser of that series in general is basically out of playoffs, pretty much. 8-8 is very hard to come back from, especially when you have to go undefeated for the rest of your split. So yeah, I'm gonna leave you to babysit chat because I need a pee.